Hello, ladies and gentlemen. This is Jeff Rains coming to you again with Foundation of Civilization. It has been quite a week, and I've got a lot to go over once again. A lot of interesting things happened, a lot of challenging things happened, and fortunately, we've had some good news this week also. It is the January 18th, 2025, and I'll start off with as typical. Oil, West Texas Intermediate crude sits at 77.88. Brent has risen to $80.79, and the OPEC basket actually had a pretty steep increase this week at 83.15. Gold increased a little bit to $2,703.20. Silver was up slightly to $30.40. The Baltic Dry Goods Index was down slightly to $987. The IMF has upgraded the world economic outlook by a tenth of a percent, a whole tenth of a percent. They are expecting 3.3% growth for 2025 due to expected growth in the United States. Conflict tracker, a lot is remained the same, except I'll make a few notes a little bit later. Israel and Gaza, Hamas have struck a deal, a tentative ceasefire agreement to exchange prisoners and, well, I guess slow down operations. Thing of note, I have not heard anything about Afghanistan and Pakistan, the conflict that started, I guess, a couple weeks ago now. Instability continues all around the world as normal, and I'll hit those as I come up to them. The military deployments, USS America remains in Sasebo, Japan. USS George Washington is in uh, yeah, Yokosuka, Japan. USS Carl Vinson continues conducting routine operations in the South China Sea. The USS Abraham Lincoln, at last report, was at its home port of San Diego, California. The USS Harry S. Truman is conducting operations in the Red Sea. The USS Nimitz, uh, de- according to notes, departed Bremerton, Washington on January 6th. The USS George H.W. Bush remains in its home port of Norfolk, Virginia, at last report. Still no word on USS Ronald Reagan, the Tripoli, the Wasp, the Gerald R. Ford, or the Iwo Jima. In Europe, the markets, DAX was up for the week to 20,903.39. The FTSE uh, was up at 8505.22. The CAC 40 was at 7709.75, and the IBEX was up at 11,916.30. One of Germany's parties is threatening to implement the incoming U.S. president's policies on immigration and threatening to shut their borders and implement deportations. We'll see how the elections and policies go with that. The USA is not the only country struggling with drones in their skies. Germany is contemplating drone incidents, and some people are proposing shooting them down. Imagine that. The uh, the former MI6 boss in the UK uh, has stated that Labor's net zero push will hand power to China. Interestingly enough, they want to reduce the power footprint of England and Wales and Scotland and Northern Ireland, while China opens up 100 power plants, coal-fired power plants this year. So any benefits that the Brits may gain are just going to be lost to China anyway. Right. The European political leaders are starting to soften their approach to what they call far right parties in Europe. In Austria, populists have won control of the parliament and are working to build a coalition government. Many of the EU's leaders will likely embrace this new party. It's a sea shift in politics as more conservative ideas are reaching the forefront of politics in very liberal Europe. according to a Swedish prime minister or Swedish PM. It's actually he's not the. I don't believe he's the prime minister. I believe he's one of the representatives. But according to him, Iran is using organized gangs to carry out serious attacks in Sweden. In Romania, fresh protests have erupted over cancellation of the presidential elections. A dispute's been ongoing in Romania. They have some people who they had an election. Some people didn't like the outcome of the election, and they are now they they're in dispute. Who knows what's going to end up happening with them? In Ukraine, well, in Russia and Ukraine, and in the war between them. I noted that a few weeks ago that North Koreans had started sending troops over there, and it is now estimated that 300 of the North Korean troops have been killed fighting for Russia, according to a South Korean lawmaker. Now, the Russian army claims that it has liberated 60% of the Kursk territory, the territory that the Ukrainians had invaded and taken over. Uh, as as UK's Starmer arrived in Ukraine to sign a 100-year treaty with Zelensky, Russia conducted some strikes. I kind of sense that they knew that Starmer was going to be there, so Russia sent their greetings. Uh, Sadly, a lot of information is very challenging to come out of here. Lot of information is oh covered up, darkened, uh, misrepresented. And enough, I saw. Of course, always cautious about what I see on any of the social media sites. There was one report that a Ukrainian F-16 had shot down 6 Russian aircraft. In fact, one of them claimed that they were the new Su-57s. The only official report that seemed to have any truth to it said that there was a Su-27 that was shot down, but it was mistakenly shot down by Russian forces. It mistakenly identified the Su-27 as a Ukrainian. Uh, um, that conflict, well, I mean, that conflict is ongoing, and we're going to continue to get all kinds of interesting responses or reports out of that war. Some pro-Ukrainian, some pro-Russian. I personally am a little more pro-peace. I think are a lot of opportunities that we have to answer the questions if we ask the right questions and if we get the right responses. Over in Asia, the markets, the Nikkei was down this week to 38,451.46. The SSE index was up to 32,441.82. The Hang Seng index was up to 19,584.06. The BSE Sensex was down to 76,619.33, and the Nifty 50 was down to 23,203.20. As far as the conflicts in the Far East go, China, it's been noted that China is building at least 5 new ships for specifically built for amphibious landings. These ships have a a long, extended front end that can reach across shallow waters where it's hard for equipment to make it, and they're specially made for beach landings, which is something that they're going to need if they invade Taiwan. Now, according to Taiwan, the Taiwan Spy Agency, China is working with gangs and shell companies to gain intelligence on Taiwan, which is something that you would expect to happen with any adversaries. The former South Korean president Yoon, was arrested Wednesday morning at his residence after his home was surrounded by 3,000 police officers. After a negotiation, the police convinced him to surrender himself. A show of force, which these are always shows of force, U.S. and Canadian warships were conducting joint drills in the South China Sea. This week, Japan passed a record defense budget. They It was up 9.4% to 8.7 trillion yen, or about $55.1 billion dollars. Japan is concerned that its forces are stunted due to the overdependence on the USA for its defense over the past, oh gosh, 60, 70 years. In the Middle East, as I noted, finally a tentative ceasefire has been reached between Israel and Hamas. Gazans celebrated, actually, many people around the world celebrated. And this the tentative ceasefire, has been approved, as I understand it, by Israel's parliament, their Knesset. Iran was holding war games as it faces Israel, and with the new administration coming into the United States. In Congo, several towns have been recaptured from rebels, but fighting continues to intensify. In Mali, a Canadian gold company, Barrick Gold, um, had 3 tons of gold valued at about $180 million seized by the military government of Mali. There was a dispute between the company and the government over the amount of revenue due to the government. And the government past has arrested 4 senior executives who they're still being held. Although Mali is the largest gold producer on the continent, the government continues to struggle with poverty, hunger, and jihadi violence. South African officials are under fire for using what they called smoke them out tactics with illegal mining operations in their country. These smoke them out tactics are when the government cuts off food and water to the miners. While 246 people were retrieved, 87 people died in this incident. Up in again Back in Congo, they they sentenced 3 Chinese citizens to 7 years in jail for similar illegal mining operations. In the Americas, the Dow Jones average was up to, or I apologize, I believe it was down to 43,487.83. The S&P 500 was at 5996.66, and the Nasdaq settled at 19,630.20. In Ecuador, homicide rates are driving higher due to gang violence. They sat at 147 per 100,000 people. The the outgoing FBI director, eh, he continues to sound the alarm on cyber threats in the United States. And he's been doing this for several years, but he has failed to provide any serious solution to the threat. That is until recently. Fortunately, some efforts are finding success, and the FBI was able to delete, if I understand it, the Chinese Plug X malware from thousands of U.S. computers. Many people in the incoming administration are shaking things up. They're expected to shake things up. And one of those, Kash Patel, wrote a book in 2023 that he would remove much of the top leadership in the FBI. It looks like he is going to get that chance, along with some other people that are going to shake things up. A a dispute has been brewing over TikTok. New details are emerging as U.S. political leaders are contemplating how to deal with the social media site. U.S. executives of the company were being forced to swear loyalty to China and their socialist political and economic system. In California, more new details are coming out about the fires. For some time now, people were complaining that insurance companies were pulling out of California because the state had stopped fire mitigation efforts. They knew it was only the insurance companies knew it was only a matter of time before fires erupted and houses burned. Insurance is based on the principle that only a few customers suffer loss, not all or nearly all of them. State were the state ensured that conditions were right for fires, and the decided that they had had enough and were canceling policies. Now, as people are reflecting on the situation, and as some of the fires are still burning, the city's response is being called into question. Fire officials had the opportunity to retain 1,000 firefighters uh, and to keep them on duty so that they can fight the fires, but they didn't call on them. They also had 40 engines available, but only deployed five to fight the fires. It's uh, it's very disturbing to see the results and to see the responses that are have come about from the fires. I've heard some reports of people waiting 45 minutes after they called and stating that there was a fire. It's something is just not right about it, especially whenever the governor has already stated, while the fires are burning, has stated that he has a commission together on how to rebuild the area. Um, something's just it I don't know. Just encourage you guys to keep your eyes open as to what's going on. Follow up finally on the Cybertruck attack in Las Vegas because again here something is not right. The man identified in the attack was Matthew Livelsberger. An email was sent from his accounts to a podcast claiming that he had special knowledge about the drones that had been flying over the United States and especially the Northeast. Well, now, as I noted, they've been flying around the world. According to the email, they use anti-gravity technology, and he also claimed to have knowledge of a mass attack in Afghanistan in 2019 where 100 or more people were killed. I cannot confirm either of these claims, and I don't know that anybody who's willing to talk can confirm them either. Now, as the podcast was conducting its investigation, they spoke with a representative from the Army via phone. The and in this conversation, the Army representative claimed that Livelsberger and his wife were having marital trouble, and that he had left the home a few days prior to the incident. They conducted a DNA test of the body and found in the truck with his closest known living relative, his daughter. They had made this request, made a request for the daughter's DNA, and this representative claimed that the DNA did not match. I didn't know all of those details. I had heard that the DNA did not match. And I thought, well, that's very suspicious, but it would explain some things. But then, as I dove into this a little bit further, I found out that there's no. Um, Livelsberger's wife has released a letter denying that he or she were having any kind of marital problems, and that there's no question of the paternity of her daughter. Matthew Livelsberger, she's indicating that Matthew Livelsberger is the father of her daughter. She has not said much else other than releasing this letter. Now, it really struck me whenever I heard that they had requested DNA from his closest living relative. They don't need that that any DNA from a close living relative. I'll add my personal knowledge here. The DoD nor the Army needed anyone else's DNA to test on the body. They already have a sample of Livelsberger's DNA on file, especially as he was a special operator. It is standard practice now to get a sample of DNA of every soldier uh, to keep a sample of that DNA on file. Someone is trying to cover something up. I don't know what. Something stinks in this instance. Please pay attention. Keep your eyes and ears open. to what is happening around us and around the world. The fires in LA, they are nearly nearly the same as what happened in Lahaina, Hawaii. Uh, Key pieces of land near the water. Fire hydrants ran dry. People were not allowed to evacuate. The response was slow. Water was not available. There are a lot of things going on that just don't add up. Now, I hope that things are adding up for you in your life and things are going well. And I hope that you guys are paying attention to the changes that are going on in the world. There are lots of changes that are happening, and please prepare yourselves. They are going to come whether you want them to or not, and whether you're prepared for them or not. Please like and subscribe. Again, this is Jeff Rains with my weekly roundup uh, eh, for news around the world. And much love to everybody. And I hope that you guys are safe and happy this week. Have a good time, and get out and do something that you enjoy today. Thanks again.